So welcome to this lecture on demo of fabrication of silicon nitride cantilever process. So what we are trying to understand in this demo lecture is to understand how a device is fabricated and what are all the individual unit processes that one need to do to achieve a desired device, right? So we are taking a cantilever as an example, which is very simple, but also it involves all the unit processes that we have seen throughout the lecture. So primarily all this process is done in a clean room. So clean room, as the name suggests, is clean. So what we mean by clean here is the number of particles is controlled. The temperature is controlled. The humidity is controlled. So it's a controlled environment. For instance, the clean rooms are classified as class 100, class 1000, class 1, class 10. So there is a number that is defined. And this number indicate how many number of particles that you can find within a cubic feet. So this is one of the metric that we use to classify clean room levels and also the cleanliness level of any clean room. So why we need clean room? Because most of the devices that we fabricate are either in micrometer scale or nanometer scale. So when you shrink down the device, even the smallest of the dust particle that you cannot see can come and sit on this device, and they can either short a device or create open circuit or create undesirable functional issues. So we want to avoid all those particles, right? This particles can be controlled only by filtering and creating a controlled environment, right? So once you create this environment, we can do processing inside this lab. But then you need humans to process this, right? So we actually generate a lot of particles, right? So we have particle coming out of our skin, out of our breath, from hair, and all our clothing also gives out particles. So we need to make sure that people who are working inside the clean room don't contaminate the clean room. So there is an elaborate procedure in preparing yourself to enter a clean room and get your process done. So that is the first part that we are going to see, and later on we will look at the fabrication process flow that is required to fabricate a cantilever device. Let's first look at the procedure to enter a clean room. So what we see here is a gowning procedure to enter a clean room. In this particular case, it is National Nanofabrication Center located at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So before entering any clean room, you have to make sure that your biometric is authenticated. So only authorized personnel are allowed to enter the premises. And the first thing is you should make sure you remove the footwear, right? Either you put an overall on your footwear or remove it. And this varies from one clean room to another. And in this particular case, you should remove the footwear, and then you use an intermediate transport slippers with overalls as well. So this zone allows you to a buffer region to reduce any kind of contamination that can be transferred into the clean room. So the next thing is to clean yourself, right, through an air shower. So all the loose particle that is sitting on our cloth, on our skin, should be dusted off. So we use forced air to remove all these particles. Once the particles are removed, then we start the gowning process. The first thing to do is protect your mouth using mouth mask, and then we have to protect any particle coming off from our head through a net. And then we put our bunny suit here. So as you can see, it covers the overall body. And then we have to put the shoes, appropriate shoes that should fit properly so that you don't have difficulty in walking. And once the bunny suit is done, then we have to protect the hand that is not protected through the gown. So once you are all fully dressed up, you should make sure that you feel comfortable and check whether the gowning is properly done before entering the clean room. So once you are done, then you can enter into the main clean room premises and then enter the bay wherever you want to process. So now after entering the clean room, you will start doing whatever process you want to do. So in this case, we want to take a very simple example of making a cantilever beam using silicon nitride as the cantilever material, which is deposited on silicon. Let's look at what we are actually trying to fabricate. So this is the desired device cross section, what we would like to realize, and this is the cross section that you see here. So the material that is free hanging is silicon nitride on silicon substrate, right? So the released beam or the membrane of a certain material which is fixed at one end, so like this, and this is freestanding on the other side. So it should be freely moving at the other end. So this is the cross section. If you look at this device from top down, it might look something like this, right? So this is a free hanging side. This is the membrane that is free hanging, and here this is fixed, right? So we would like to fabricate this device, and there are multiple processes involved in fabricating this. And the first step that we have to do is to design a mask that is required, right? So first we have to make a mask, right? As we already saw in lithography, whatever structure you want to make, we have to make a mask for it, a photo mask for it. So what you see on the left side is a group of cantilever designs, and on the right side you see a zoomed in image of what we have designed, right? So as I mentioned, so this is the fixed side and this is your free hanging side. So this should be your free hanging side and this should be fixed side. So this is all top down design. So you design for a certain width that you have here, and then for a certain length and also the width. So these are all the dimensions that you would use in order to design a photo mask. So once the photo mask is designed, then the next step is to make a mask plate, right? So that mask plate looks something like this. So on the left side, we already designed a mask, right, using a CAD tool. And on the right side, what you see is a mask plate wherein the design is transferred onto the plate, where you have the chromium layer, that is a dark region which is opaque here, and then the open region that you can see here, right? So the open regions are the places where light would go through. So once the mask plate is done, then we can start doing the fabrication process, right? And before doing any fabrication process, the first thing to do is to clean the substrate, right? We should first clean the substrate. It is a wet process. In this case, this is RCA clean of the silicon wafer. So the silicon wafer should be cleaned so that we don't have any contamination on the surface. So let's look at the cleaning process. So the first thing that one need to do when you are doing wet process is to wear personal protective gear, right? So we have to make sure we are protected from any chemical safety hazard. So what we need to do is put the safety sleeves so that any acid spill or splashes will not affect us. So once you wear the sleeves, then it's time to wear the apron, right? So the apron will prevent any acid or any chemical spill onto your body. So the personal protection here will protect you from any safety hazard that you might face in case of spill. And the next thing is to protect your face and head using a face mask, right? So here the face protection will help you to prevent any sort of spills as well. So once you are completely dressed, then you enter the wet edge process bay, where you have multiple equipments that can do various things. So all the clean room facility that has wet processing stages will have various wet bench processing stations. So these wet bench processing stations are allocated for various chemical processes. So as you can see here, there are various modules that are there, and each module can be used for either solvent processing or acid processing, or something that is highly contaminating that contains metals, or metal free processing. So various processing stations are isolated. So the main reason for doing this isolation is to make sure that the processes are done without any cross contamination and also safety. So what we are going to do is to do cleaning process. This is going to be what we call level 0 or front end process, where no metal contamination, no polymer contamination should be there. And once you identify the bay, the next thing is to also wear the local protective gear that is required to process the wafer that you are trying to process. So here what you see is the wafer is kept in the wafer carrier, and the first thing that you need to do is rinse the wafer with deionized water. And once the rinsing is done, then you are going to keep this into the acid bath, right? And in this case, this is a RCA clean, and we have a bath with the acid filled in, and we are going to put the wafer carrier inside that acid bath. And once you keep it inside the acid bath, you close the bath and then you start the process. So this is an automated bath process where the temperature of the bath is maintained. As you can see here, the temperature is maintained as 75 degrees Celsius, right? This is important for cleaning process where we maintain the right temperature. So since this is an automated process, you can also see that the timer is also running there, and you can keep a monitor of this timer as well. So once the process is done, we can take the wafer out, and then we have to remove all the acids that are sitting in the wafer and also wafer carrier. So there are two ways to do that. First, we quickly do a rinse through the rinser here, and then we will do a bath rinsing. So the wafer is now taken to this bath that contains deionized water, and the wafer carrier is kept inside this deionized water bath. The carrier handle is removed now, and the bath is closed. And once the bath is closed, we will start the DI water splash. So that again is an automated process. So here you can see this is a bath 5 that contains this deionized water. So when you start the process, you can see the water starts splashing, right? So when the water starts splashing, it is removing all the acid contamination sitting on the wafer, right? So we used acid to clean, but now we have to remove the cleaning acid using this deionized water. So the way we monitor the cleanliness is by looking at the conductivity of the deionized water. So because of the acid, the pH will change, and your conductivity of water will also change. So as you keep on splashing water, right, then once you remove all the acids that are present in the wafer and the carrier, then the conductivity of the water will increase again. So once we reach the normal deionized water conductivity, then we are sure that all the contamination is removed, right? So once the process is done, then this can be switched off, and then the wafer can be taken out. we need to wait for this process because we should make sure that all the contaminants are removed. What I mean by that is the conductivity of water is maintained or brought to about 18 megaohms, right? So that is the deionized water conductivity. So when you have contaminants, the conductivity will decrease, right? So the conductivity will increase, right? So now the process is done. So you can see here the bath is indicating the process is complete, and once the process is complete, you can take the wafer out. So the wafer is now clean. However, you can see still water, is sticking onto this wafer. So we need to dry this wafer. So we have cleaned the wafer now, but still we have water sitting on the wafer. But we don't need water in the subsequent processes. We need to remove all the water. So in order to remove this water, what we need to do is to dry the wafer, right? In this case, we are going to use spin drying machine here. So the wafer is loaded with the wafer carrier inside the drying tool here. So the drying tool will spin the wafer, right? And while spinning it, the centrifugal forces are going to pull the water out, right? As you can see here, the water is being taken out. And once it reaches the maximum spin speed, all the wafers are all the water particles are taken out. Once the spinning is done and the wafer is dry, the tool automatically indicates that the process is complete. And once the process is complete, you can remove the wafer out of the tool. But still, there is one more step that we do in order to make sure that there is no water present, right? So whatever spinning is going to do is going to remove this wafer, remove water from this wafer. And then we can do a dry dehydration bake if necessary to make sure the wafer is clean. So what you see on the screen is a cleaned wafer. So now we have cleaned the wafer. So the wafer is clean and we can use it for subsequent process. So now let's look at what is the next process that we need to do. The next process is cantilever material deposition. So as we have already mentioned, so silicon nitride is the material that we would like to use as cantilever material. So that means we have to deposit this material on top of the cleaned wafer. In this particular case, we want to deposit approximately 200 nanometers of silicon nitride, let's say. So after deposition, the cross section would look something like this, where you have silicon nitride of about approximately 200 nanometers, right, is what we would like to have. And the top view will be very uniform because we have not done any patterning yet. So it's a blanket deposition. And what we are going to use for the silicon nitride deposition is low pressure chemical vapor deposition, which is a high temperature furnace process. So what we see here is a horizontal LPCVD furnace. So LPCVD meaning low pressure chemical vapor deposition furnace. So as you can see here, one of the tube is being opened so that we can deposit silicon nitride in this particular tube. So the tube is horizontal in nature. So when the tube comes out, you can see how the wafer is loaded. But before that, the door contains all the gases that goes into the chamber for deposition. For instance, if you want to deposit silicon, we will use silane. So that silane gas is injected into the chamber using these cartridges that you see here. So the flow of these gases are controlled through these cartridges. So what you see here is a container wherein we put our wafer inside in a wafer boat, and this is covered by this protective cassette. So once the holder comes out, so we should try to carefully remove the cassette here in order to load the wafer. So if you look at the chamber here, the furnace here, so this is a quartz tube that you see here, and internally you can see some deposition already happened. That is why it is dark in this region. And this is the wafer holder. So you can see here the wafers that are already present inside the chamber is taken out. And then before loading our sample or our wafer, we are going to remove whatever samples that are already existing on the sample holder. So the cleaned wafer is now placed inside the wafer boat, right, and transported into the furnace tube. So the whole process of loading and unloading is done using the motors, which are computer controlled. So there is a program that determines the speed of the movement of the holder in and out. So as I mentioned earlier, you can see here the two cartridges, right? And this is the way through which the gases are fed inside the chamber. And then the temperature inside the tube and everything is all measured through the sensors that you see here with various wires coming out. This is all the sensor outputs where we are measuring the flow, the temperature within the furnace. Right. So once the loading is done, then we come back to the control program, and we have to choose the right recipe, the deposition recipe, with which we can deposit the silicon nitride that we want. So this is all pre-programmed. You can see here there are multiple recipes available, and you are loading this program into this control software so that the gas lines can be controlled, the temperature elements can be controlled, right? So if you look at these graphs carefully, what this tells us is how the temperature is going to increase, and we will maintain the temperature, and after the deposition we are going to reduce the temperature and bring it down to the required standby temperature, after which we can open the chamber and remove the wafers. Right? So the temperature profile here is programmed, and what is also programmed is the flow of various gases. Right? So when you look at the different color traces here, they are nothing but traces of different gases. Right? So if you are going to stay at the deposition temperature, in this case about 750 or 760 degree Celsius, and this is where both your silane gas and nitrous oxide is going to react and then create silicon nitride, right? And once the deposition is done, the feed gas is stopped, so both the gases are switched off, and then you are trying to cool it down. And while you are cooling down, you will flow nitrogen gas in order to take the residual precursor gases present in the chamber in order to arrest any deposition that might happen during ramp down time, right? And you can see here what is happening in different zones. So tube 1, furnace, load zone, carrier zone, end zone. So there are different zones. So load zone is the starting of the tube, central zone is the center of the tube, and the end zone is where the end of the tube is. So the temperature should be uniformly maintained. In this case, it's 700, 700, 700. So there is a uniform temperature we are maintaining. And not just that, we have to also look at what should be the flow ratios or the pressures are. So all those things are controlled through this program. So you can see here the pressure control. So we have to put the right pressure that we need, and also the MFCs, the mass flow controller for various gases, right? So the mass flow controller for dichlorosilane here, right, and ammonia, right, and nitrogen. So all these flows are also controlled through this program, right? So you can see here about 100 SCCM of SLM of nitrogen, 200 SCCM of dichlorosilane, and then we have 200 SCCM of ammonia, right? So all these gases are being flown through this various tubes for deposition, right? So we can control all these flows using this program. So once we update the program, the tool now starts to deposit, right? And the way that you can monitor whether you are getting the right gas flows or not is through this interface where we are looking at various valves, right? You can see here various gas are identified, and you can notice some of those are 0 and some are non-zero. So what it means is there is a flow through these tubes. And once the deposition is done, so the wafer is removed, and what you see here is a silicon wafer deposited with silicon nitride film. So initially we saw the color of the wafer was grayish or blackish, right? So now you will see about close to bluish tint, right? So this bluish tint is because of the nitride film that is sitting on top of silicon. So once the deposition is done, we should measure the thickness of this silicon nitride. Because this is a blanket layer, we cannot use step height measurement. The tool that we use to measure the thickness is called spectroscopic ellipsometry. So here you can see the source. Here it's a broadband source, and this is a detector, right? And there is a polarizer at the input end here, and there is an analyzer sitting before the detector. So we are using reflection of this light, in particular the polarization change after reflection, and that can be used to model the thickness of silicon nitride present in this layer. So when you measure the reflectivity of the different polarization that we have there, and then we can model this, and then we will fit this model to whatever data or whatever spectrum we get, right? And here you can see silicon nitride is the model that we are using. The thickness we measure is about 137 nanometers, right? And you can see here the fit is reasonably good. So from this measurement, we can say we have a thickness of 137 nanometers of silicon nitride is achieved using this LPCVD deposition technique. So once the deposition is done, we are going to use the silicon nitride that we achieved using LPCVD process and start doing patterning. So the next step is lithographic patterning, where we are going to coat a thin layer of photoresist and transfer the pattern, right? So transfer the pattern that we want onto this photoresist, and later on transfer this pattern into a silicon nitride layer. So the first step in lithography is to transfer the pattern onto the soft mask here, and we will see that demo shortly.